Today's video is concerning rustrome.ru, a website that offers a version of Rust Legacy. From 2013, 2014, and 2015, the Rust Legacy series is still in use even though it's officially disavowed by the authors, Facepunch, and by the vendors, in effect, Steam. So we're going to talk about legacy-classic.rustrome.ru, the 2024 September 23rd or 2020 version, depending on which file and which file date you're looking at, which is internally seems to be Rust Alpha 4.5.2 from July of 2014. It uses Steam Client 2005 and Valve API 2013, which is pretty typical. When you run it, the user interface comes in two varieties. One of them is the one that's in rust.exe, the main program that we would normally think of, and another one is in a launcher. So I'm going to be discussing those in a minute, but what they connect to is a very limited number of servers. It doesn't seem to have the ability to add more servers to it. I've tried and failed. There are many, many servers out there that run software, sometimes really tiny versions, sometimes big versions, that contain the ability for you to connect to them if you know their location on the internet with something usually called an IP. And you can use that server, play the game instead of being offline and not being able to play it, and play it against other people or be alone on a server if there's nobody there, effectively being a single-player game. And that's how most of them work. They do that by querying a list of servers using a file that's called server list. And what it does is it brings up, IP addresses or website names that contain a feed that will give you a list of active servers. They ping the servers every couple of minutes, and that's it. And there's a stack of them, just in case one of them is missing one, you can still find them. And it may or may not implement some sort of checking to see if if let's say there's 4 of them, let's see if 3 of the 4 show a server, that would indicate high likelihood it's up, that sort of thing. The listing for Rust Rome is net.connect, which is the command, and then it runs or implements classic.rustrome.ru : and then the port number, which in this case is 28015. There's also a pure IP address, the actual real IP address. This is really an IP address, version of it that I'm also going to list in the description below. You can look up console commands on rust.fandom.com/wiki/console_commands, and on other pages that will be linked below to try to fix some of the things I'm going to be complaining about. But these complaints are based on understanding what this is. This one uses a launcher. Now, in most cases, a copy of Rust will contain rust.exe, which is the game, and another one for setting your nickname for the game externally. It'll be a name file or whatever. But some of them have launchers that take over that function, and this one is one of those. So I'm going to describe the user interface or user interface that it has, as I always call it. First off, the user interface top row of 5 buttons when it comes up, if it comes up, I'll be getting that in a minute, will say launcher_legacy.exe when you run it. It'll say that name, and it says unhandled exception has occurred in your application. If you click continue, the application will ignore this error and attempt to continue. If you click quit, the application will close immediately. No application is associated with this specified blah, blah, blah. It's basically trying to implement Internet Explorer 4 or something. And that happens with all 5 buttons. One of them apparently is a Discord. There's a VK button. There's a help menu, which would have been very handy. Another button for apparently donating money. And another one for home. Now, there are another set of buttons lower than that in the user interface, right above a little window, which I'll bring up why it's usually blank. Those 4 buttons do literally nothing unless the page loads. This launcher has elements of being a web browser. At the far left, on the bottom, is where you type in your nickname. Mine is Waptec. And on the right, you pick Classic or DM. At the time I did a screenshot of this, there was only 2 other people online before I logged in. You have to pick one or the other, and then you hit the button in the middle that's bright red at the bottom that's in Russian. The entire thing assumes Russian, but it includes English language stuff as well. And when trying to look at the Discord, I found it to be wanting. So let's move on. When you try to run it at all, launcher_legacy.exe, seemingly being necessary at least to change your nickname within the game for that iteration of it, it will bring up a security alert. Revocation information for the security certificate for this site is not available. Do you want to proceed? You got yes, no, and view certificate. No matter what combination I do, holding down escape key and getting these dozens of errors to disappear is faster. Someone could complain, well, you're using an old operating system, etc. Please understand that this game was originated in 2013 and its last update was 2015, and virtually all of these launchers and such have been made to work correctly since, a while back. So saying that it's the wrong operating system, or maybe because my Internet Explorer subsystem isn't cooperating, those are kind of stupid. But anyway, if I try to add the certificate, it'll say the import was successful, which is a lie, and then it doesn't work anymore. And it says the certificate cannot be verified up to a trusted certification authority because reasons. And it expires in 2025, February 17th in this case. Now, I'm pretty sure it's the web implementation, but that gives you an idea of one of the things you run into. After you set your name, you can run rust.exe, just double-clicking it instead, and it'll probably launch. Half the time it does, half the time it doesn't. If it doesn't, then you have to include, when you load it, you hit the F1 key, bring up the console, and put in net.connect space classic.rustrom.ru:28015, and it should go to it. That's the one for doing the classic thing. Anyway, again, basics of this piece of software is that it is just really a copy of Rust Alpha 4.5.2 from 2014, July 11th, with Steam Client 2005 and Valve API 2013, and is nothing special, except, number one, in the upper left-hand corner, it has an irritating habit of showing me the frame rate and a bunch of other things. It actually slows down the interface slightly, especially if you try to disable it by using any advice you see off of like rustfandom.com wiki console commands and on Steam community listing of them. None of them help. This is an implementation that's been baked in, much like the IP address that you use for going to one of the two main servers, which only had two people on them collectively. When I did the test, the frame rate is screwed up a little bit by it. But what are the advantages with this? Well, number one, on the server, they've implemented putting in new places to go get stuff, including at one of the highest mountains in the game, seemingly off-map, like it would be off-map normally. The next thing is the map is new. This one is not an actual map like a picture and you're seeing it and your little dot moves around, which is implemented in most of the versions from 2014 and 2015. This one is a live or pseudo-live map derived from screenshotting the entire map as a flat effect and putting it up on the screen. And while you're moving around on it, you can use the scroll wheel and kind of move around a little bit. There's no explanation how it works. I'd love for someone to put an explanation below in the comment section. And it's a full map of apparently the entire blasted real map, which is much larger than it would be for a normal game. The normal game is only 1/16 of the surface area. This one might actually be able to follow you around as you move and show you the entire map. There's only one area with anything visually interesting as far as the game engine's concerned, and that's the one with the rocks in it. And that you can actually see the limit where the rocks stop. It shows you where the limit of the play area is. However, you can go to the crater in the central north coast. You can go all over the map, at least so far. The map, in my case, disabled itself when I tried to reassert that I was in the game on that server without rerunning the launcher. Because it kick-banned me temporarily or just disconnected me, and then when I reconnected, because you can just use the reconnect function, there is one, you hit the F1 button and hit the little home button or recycle button. I hit the recycle button and it worked. The map was not available. That map is quite useful. Now, what am I going to do with it? I'm going to, if you're watching from Rust-Rom, I'm going to steal that map because it's not a map someone artistically built. It looks like someone screenshotted the entire physical map from a specific altitude and then just cut and pasted it together. Or this is a live map done by putting a camera way up in the air, setting its rendered distance extremely high, but setting it granularity low so it can do a good map. It includes highlighting in green of all of the areas you would want to go through, and it's quite a neat map. I would like a much more minimal version of it. I'd like to be able to zoom in and out, and more importantly, I'd like to know what all the controls are, but they're not implemented as far as explaining it. Again, the help button and most of the other buttons either crash the launcher or say that they don't work or whatever, and or try to crash it anyway. The next thing is that documentation. All copies of Rust Legacy, and honestly most of the copies of the current version, are missing so much documentation it's kind of sad. Most gamers I know would dig up every single thing they could find and try really hard to, get an edge in the game on it and do it without breaking any rules and be undetectable. That seems reasonable, like using a gamma hack so you can see at night, that sort of thing. That's why it's so dark in the game. They decided to make it even harder to see if you had gamma on and succeeded in pissing everybody off. But the thing about this is that nobody, including these people who mod this, ever seemed to post this information where you can just view it and reuse it. There's a couple of buttons that seem to indicate you're supposed to be able to donate to them. But they seem to be holding information hostage, almost. Anyway, internally, this is the 2014 iteration or build of Rust Legacy. The server itself has some mods on it, and the game itself has very minimal mods. It's extremely optimized for frame rate by turning absolutely everything off that isn't absolutely necessary, and then slows it down just slightly or a lot, depending on where you are. By showing you the frame rate, it seems to make it worse. And we don't have the ability to turn it off because the documentation doesn't get to the point about this. Now, I'm going to go off on Discord versus putting it on a web page. They have a website. It's named rustrome.ru. Even if it's in Russian, if they put it up in plain text, every question they're asked and the answer, the obvious thing being able to turn off this frame rate thing in the upper left-hand corner, along with all the other stats, and also how do we control the map mode. If they did that, that would be great. There's only a few things they've changed in it compared to every other game. It'd also be great if they put it out as a mod we could add to our game so we could get rid of the map that I'm ending up having to rewrite and let us use this map. It'd also be nice if we knew how it was built so that we could change it to where it just showed spawn points of things, which it seems to do. In fact, when something shows up, respawns, like a pile of wood or whatever, it seems to show a temporary green, very single pixel-sized dot showing us where to go. I'm not really sure if that's accurate. I don't know what those indicate. And here's where I go with the problem. They have rustrome.ru and don't just put up the questions and answers and help there. They want you to use Discord. Discord has become very popular as a dumping ground for all problems you have in making software. It used to be Patreon. You'd have to go to Patreon to get the help menu. Instead of just including it with your mod, a text file would take care of this. And a text file can easily become a web page just by literally just editing it only slightly and putting a header in that says take whatever text comes after this, make it a web page, and it's just a statement up on the website. They take up jack shit for space and jack shit for bandwidth, but let's go to Discord instead. The constant push to go on Discord for stuff that shouldn't have to require Discord. Signing up for yet another damn thing that just ends up kind of being a waste of time and invites spam. That's my only real complaint. Other than that, the installation of it requiring that I write my own installer because they insisted on making it to where I couldn't just right-click and unzip it. One of them posted underneath one of my videos complaining about it that they were going to put out an extractable zip version. They haven't done it. I don't think they ever will. I will build one if I have to. Thanks for watching. Have a good day. Good luck with that.